Hi there, my name's Dan Wallin, and over the years, I've been asked by a lot of friends and family about possibly putting together a series of seminars or workshops, little short, 45 minutes to an hour, covering some of the fundamentals of what it would take to get into the world of software development and specifically web development. Some of these people have great jobs, but they're interested in changing careers to mix it up a little bit. Others don't have such a great job and they just want to completely change careers and they know they can do better financially and have more flexibility and things like that. So finally, after talking with a few people, we decided to get together last Thursday actually at my house and put together this first in a series I'm planning to do on so you want to be a web developer. That's what I'm going to call it. And the goal is to kind of take you from absolute zero experience. You know how to use a browser, you feel like you're pretty good at a PC or a Mac, but that's about it. Maybe you're good at Outlook, Word, Excel, things like that. That would be helpful. But you've had no programming experience, zero. So the goal is in this first workshop that we recorded to show you the basics of how a browser works behind the scenes, the request and the response, and just the basics of what's going on to render or show what it is you see. And the thing that does that, at least the main thing, is called HTML. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the fundamentals of HTML. I'm going to show you an online web-based editor that you can play around with. And then from there, we'll talk about some of the developer tools. Now, moving forward in future seminars or workshops, I'm going to go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper, more HTML. We're going to learn about something called CSS. This is how you style what you see on these fancy web pages you might go to. Or JavaScript. This is how you can dynamically show and hide something. Or you might have noticed when you move your mouse over something, it might move or something like that. Well, a lot of that's using something called JavaScript, which is a programming language. So the goal is really for people changing jobs or wanting to change jobs to learn what would be involved. And I'll start off with the story of how I got into it. And I didn't start out being a developer at all. I had a completely different career path in high school and college and things like that. So having said that, let's go ahead and jump on into this first workshop. I do need to emphasize these are completely on the fly. I won't be preparing any official material. I'm just going to share some knowledge and hope that there's some folks out there that can benefit from it. So thanks for tuning in. First off, thanks for coming, guys. Since worked, didn't work, but works tomorrow.
Yeah.
And worked. So everybody's probably a little worn out, but I did a 5-hour energy, so I'll be fine. So as I told you guys, we're going to record this mainly for you guys, but I was talking it over with, he's not going to be on tonight, but another guy named Greg Wallin, who's my cousin actually. He has some folks that are interested, and then he wants to, but they couldn't tune in, so they're just going to watch the recording and stuff. So we'll probably post to YouTube. So Jeff, watch your language.
I will watch my mouth.
You guys did sign. You did sign the non-disclosure and all that, right?
Yeah.
So
we did.
Starsky obviously did. We have our dog here, but
he sees nothing.
Anyway, so for those that might be watching the recording, my name's Dan Wallin. I run a consulting company called Wallin Consulting. We specialize in pretty much all things web with corporations around the world. And we have Seth, Jeff, and Danny here, and possibly some other friends that we'll watch later. And we've been talking for how long, guys? 2 years?
Yeah.
Like, we should do, like, how would I be a web developer? So I think I'm going to call it, so you want to be a web developer, this will be like workshop 1. And as I was talking to you guys before we started recording, so this one we're going to do like basics, and I'm going to show you guys some online editors that are really good that you can use. That way you don't have to even install anything and you can play with this stuff, real easy. But today we're going to focus, two things. Number one, I'm going to start off by kind of talking about how I think there's a misconception that to be like a software developer or web developer, you got to be like this, born genius or something. Now, you've been doing stuff like with WordPress, Jeff, so that's not true. But at the same time, you're doing a little more visual. What were you doing, Divi?
Yeah.
Divi with WordPress? Yeah. So I'm going to tell the story mainly for those that might listen later. You guys might have heard it of how I got into it because I am not a genius, but yet it's worked out super well. And so I'm going to tell that real quick, and then we'll jump into like a website, I don't know, like ESPN or something, and we'll just start poking around, and I'll show you guys how it actually works behind the scenes. And then, like I said, next week we'll do HTML. Maybe HTML again. I don't know. We'll see how time goes. But probably CSS and then JavaScript. Then JavaScript's a big topic, so we'll probably spend like a month just on the fundamentals because since we're doing an hour. All right. So real quick, for those watching, these guys kind of know me. So for those watching, when I was about I think 14, my grandpa got us a Apple IIc. You guys ever see those? It's a green screen. And the only thing I really remember is we had Congo Bongo. And anyway, I don't even know where I got it, if it was a magazine or because, back then you didn't look anything on the web. There was no web. So it probably was a book I got at school, and Apple had this little AppleScript type basic language. And I remember I got something to run, and then that was it. Never touched it. Because I remember Congo Bongo, I remember that, and I remember this game called Wizardry, which was I think it was a text-only adventure game. No graphics. or very limited graphics.
Yeah.
But man, it was awesome game. I mean, because everything was like in your mind. But anyway, so then in high school, I don't remember, in high school, did we take classes the whole year or did you have semesters of classes? I don't remember actually. I think we had semesters too. So anyway, I think I only did like a semester or period or whatever they call it. Or quarter. I think it might be a quarter, yeah. And we had these things called TRS 80s. I don't know if you guys remember those. They used to call them trash 80s. It was a Tandy machine, and it was like this big boxy thing, and it ran BASIC. And I remember I made this little golf tutorial game, and I was so proud because I made it where you hit the space bar, and like this bar goes roop, 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 roop around the screen. And I was like, I rule the world, like, look what I did. And then I would show like a little golfer, which was a box with an L, the club. And anyway, and then I never touched anything. And then fast forward to, I think it was either my junior or early, or maybe the summer before my senior year in college, a friend of mine named Jim, Danny knows him, he was a mechanical engineer or something like that. And literally, this changed like the whole career path, this one moment. He knocked and goes, hey, I'm going to go down. I got to work on some labs. We have this new network setup. And it was like the internet, but fast. Well, for 1994 or 5 or whenever it was. It was around that time frame. And so he's like, you want to come? I'm like, yeah, I'll go check it out. So he got me hooked up. And there was, I had never seen any of this, keep in mind, right? So I don't even know if I had a computer at that point. I'm not sure. But it was called Mosaic. You guys probably haven't heard of that. You haven't. You're way too young. You heard of Mosaic, Jeff? It's the precursor to Netscape. So for the young ones watching, Netscape's old. Mosaic, even older. I mean, like Tyrannosaurus Rex was, I'm pretty sure, still around when Mosaic came out. But anyway, I right-clicked on the webpage, or there was a menu or something, and I found out you could see the source code. And it was HTML code. And I still to this day remember kind of like looking around like, should I be doing this? Like, am I going to get busted? Or because, you can actually see the code. So, I found out you could. And back then we had dot matrix printers. And I actually printed it. And here's the funny part, given what I do now. I walk up the stairs. I still remember this, like, to this day, real vivid. And I remember going, oh my gosh, you could never do that. It was just HTML. But it looked like Greek, You're reading it going, impossible. So the reason I tell this long-winded story for those watching that don't know me like these guys do is I did not have a background in this. I did not grow up in it. And for the last 17 years, I've run my own consulting company. And no, I am not a genius. Now, can I figure things out? Yeah, I'm pretty good at what I do, but it's because I study a lot. It's not because I'm like, I work with some guys that they're freaking brains. They just, you swear they're born with it, So having said that, we'll start to get into some stuff here. For those watching that maybe have zero background in this, if you have any inkling of you don't get lost in Word, you can navigate Excel or Outlook or whatever, then odds are you could probably be, or at least do some of the web development. You do not have to be an expert to do this. That's the big misconception out there. Now, if you're writing like device drivers, or you're writing assembly level code for cars or whatever, okay, I'll admit that's pretty complex crap. But the stuff that we're going to talk about, honestly, if you just study, you could do it. So, all right. So let me pop open the browser, and the first thing you always have to do in any programming class is what? Anyone know? Make sure you have an internet connection. Get out of here. Very good. No, come on. You might know. We kind of did it.
Log in, register.
Kind of. All right, it was a vague question. Hello World.
Oh.
I was going to say yes, actually.
You have to do Hello World. So there is and we'll probably end up, there's a bunch of these I have. You'll notice, I don't know if the camera or the recording will catch this zoom, but Code Sandbox is an online editor. It's really cool for React.js, it's called, but it works for anything. StackBlix does React or Angular or mobile apps called Ionic. AWS bought a company called Cloud9, and you can have an online editor. Scrim is actually a company I'm talking with right now. They're based in Norway. They have some cool tutorials and stuff you guys can check out. And then this is something I'm just exploring right now. All right, well, let me go to here. All right, yeah, let me sign into my, hopefully quickly here. Actually, I wonder if I can do my login. Sorry, I was already logged in on my other machine. I realized I was not on this one. I might have okay, cool. I'm in. All right, okay. So let me go to, I think it's under my profile, Sandboxes, Hello World. All right, beautiful. So let me go to the web, and bear with me one sec. I'll update my fonts here. Let's go like 24. All right, that good enough? You guys see? Pretty good? Okay. So there you have it, folks. That's all we're going to cover. If you can do this, you can be a web developer. No. This is the extreme basic structure of any web page you will find, minus Hello World. Go to, because I know you guys all like sports, go to ESPN.com, right-click. Let's go there real quick. Right-click, man. Did you see that game Harden had? Yeah. Holy cow. That was crazy. He had like 60 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. Yeah, wow. It was insane. So I'm in Chrome, which I'm sure you guys have used. IE has this. Firefox is another browser you might come across that some people use. Edge is the new Microsoft one for Windows 10. And on any browser, you guys have probably maybe seen this. You can right-click and view page source. And let's just look. Now, there's a lot more here, but I mean, it's ESPN, but notice HTML. Now, they have a head with a bunch of stuff, and let me scroll down. Okay, ignore. And somewhere way down here is going to be a body tag. I should have just searched for it. Yeah, right there. Now, you'll see there's all kinds of other stuff. Don't worry about that right now. We could go to any news site, any web page you go to your site, Jeff, your WordPress, and you're going to see this, right? Every web page does this. So we'll start to explore this a little bit more today. But real quick, the way the web works, just for those that are really, really new, you guys might already know this, but if not, so when I went to ESPN.com, that then calls their server. They then have some technology on the server. Could be WordPress, which is PHP. It could be Java. It could be .NET. Who knows? These are all these technologies, if those watching are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, that you could learn to program on the server, the web server. And so the web server gets the request, and then hits the database wherever the data is. Could be in files, could be in database, could be in what's called a web service, who knows. And then it converts it into this HTML page, sends it to the browser, and then the browser, all its job is to take those tags that we're going to now start talking about and basically convert them into this. The beauty of the web, if you've ever wondered how it works, is, all you have to have is a browser, obviously, and, I can run all these apps, and you don't have to install anything. So it's pretty freaking cool. Jeff was using, I haven't used it, but the WordPress plugin, the Divi, is pretty freaking cool what he can do, like, really quick with pretty much zero programming, right?
Yeah,
just drag and drop.
Yeah, almost all of it's just drag and drop and filling in the blanks, basically.
Yeah. Now, we're not going to do that. We're going to learn, like, the core, concepts. But any website you go to, that's what's happening. It's calling the web server. The web server has some technology on it. Who knows what it is? Sometimes you can actually find out by looking at what's called headers. It's metadata that comes back. You never see it in the page, but it's there in the browser. And sometimes the headers will actually give you a hint about what type of web server it is. And you can figure it out. Now, a lot of good web servers, they turn all that off. And that way hackers can't even figure out what technology they're using. It works out pretty well. So that would be, they're already kicking butt, aren't they? He's kind of on a roll, man. So, again, go to any website you can think of, and you're going to see pretty much something like these HTML, a body, and then something in the body, right? Now, you saw there was a head tag, and these are called tags or elements. So if I put, like, head, these are non-visible things. All right, and this is where I might put, one thing could be visible, actually. It's called title. And I could say that the title of this page is, hey there. And if I were running this actually, in a real browser on the tab up here, see how it says ESPN, worldwide leader, blah, blah, blah. That's the title. So if we right click and view source, go in, you'll see a tag called title. And that's how they're setting that thing. Pretty easy, right? Now, Danny, you had some of this in like what? 8th grade or something like that? So you should totally memorize it. That was only like 10 years ago. Yeah. And Seth, have you ever played with tags at all?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit? Okay. So we're not going to focus so much on the tags today, but next time, like next week, we'll go into more details on this. But all I want you guys to get at this point is that HTML, first off, it's a text file. I mean, could I use like Notepad to build this? Yeah. I mean, you don't have to have any like pro editor. You could just use Notepad and build websites that potentially made money. I mean, think how cool that is. Like the least sophisticated possible editor. If you were awesome, you could do really well just with Notepad. I used to use stuff like that back in the day. We used to have, this kind of dates me a little bit, but there was a company in Australia, they had this editor called Hot Dog Pro. Hot Dog Pro. And man, it was like the bomb back then for editors. And I saw a screenshot of it. And you know those old like Battleship Gray interfaces with the big bulky buttons on them? That's what it looks like. But I don't remember it like that. I remember it as like this like awesome sleek. Yeah, because at the time, man, it was like cutting edge, you know? But anyway, nowadays, like this editor, I'll give you guys this link a little later, remind me. But you know, anyone watching, you can go to this link. It'll hopefully be around. But we'll start to kind of do stuff in here, and then I can save it, and then you guys should be able to get to this. And you can do what's called fork it. Fork it is where you take what I have, and then you hit the fork, and what it does, it creates like a new version that you can work on. So it like leaves mine alone, and it's kind of like makes a copy for you. You know, it's called forking. And that way you guys can start to play with this stuff. And I don't know, do you have time to go through any of those tutorials at all, Jeff?
I did. I looked at them.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I did.
Good job, man. You get an A. Did you guys look through any tutorials? Did you even ask about tutorials? Jeff did. You're fired. No. Seth, it doesn't matter that you wore a tie. Okay? People can't see. Seth just came from work. But the really cool thing about this, honestly, my favorite thing about being a developer is, well, number one, once you get pretty good at your craft, you can live anywhere in the world and find a job. I mean, jobs are everywhere with this. If you are a 9-to-5 type job like corporation, you'd have to be a little more picky, but some of them allow you to even telecommute and work remotely, 100% remote, some of them. Now, there's a lot that don't, and you have to work, whatever. But once you learn like HTML, CSS, which is how you style the page, I'm going to show you the basics of all the big three today, and then we'll start diving in. Once you learn that, it's amazing the amount of things you could do out there. I've met, I don't know how many people that came from, well, I'll tell you one example. I have a friend in London who got into this. His name's Sani. And I'd have to ask Sani. Sani, if you ever see this, you'll have to fill me in. But I don't think it's been more than a year and a half, right? He's now speaking at conferences. He does projects. Now, he dove in deep. He didn't just come listen to something and then go, okay, it'll just like osmosis, Right. No, I mean, I didn't finish my one story. So here's how I got into it. When I first saw this, and keep in mind, back then it was common, your HTML tags would be all uppercase. And, nowadays we consider that like yelling at someone. That's what it looked like when you printed it out. Imagine all that uppercase, everything, and no spaces. All on one line and then wrap. So you can imagine that's why when I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never do this. And now I look back and laugh and go, oh my, it's HTML. Come on. HTML you could teach to a kindergartner. I'm not kidding. You could. It is not hard. Now, JavaScript gets a little more involved, but it's not hard. CSS isn't hard. CSS can just be, it's like if you like going to the dentist, you'll probably love CSS. It's awesome, actually, but it takes a little practice. It's how you style your pages. So I got started, for those that are wondering, so right out of college, I got a job at Fidelity Investments. And remember I told you I saw that, or I don't think I told you guys. Did I tell you I saw us on the Mosaic browser? It was a classified ad site. I don't think I mentioned that, did I? So I saw that, and they had like a ton of ads on it, right? And this is like 94, 95. And they had the pricing for an ad. And I'm sitting there, doing the math going, holy crap, they got to be making a killing. Now it's probably all fake ads or something, But, I mean, if they did have that many ads, they were cleaning up. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go do that. And I did. It was called QuickLink Cyber Mall. I have no idea why that was a good name. I had a little tiger mascot. I made, bitmap looking graphics. Yeah, that was pretty much my logo. I still have that website somewhere. I do. And anyway, I actually made it, and then Mom, my wife, she one day goes, "You got to stop this," because it was right when I first got married. Because what was happening was I didn't do online payments, so I had to take checks. Well, the checks would bounce, and then I think it was like a $30 fee or something like that. If the check bounces, so we were actually losing money. But here's the kicker: I then went to work for Fidelity Investments, and I knew the web pretty decent then, and I got put on their web team at Fidelity, and because I was like the guy that knew web stuff, still wasn't like a full-time developer, but that was my entry. And then I found out a buddy of mine called me, Chris Bowen, and he says, "Hey, we're hiring," because he knew I did a little bit, and he goes, "We're hiring at Maricopa County," and I think the salary was like $40,000. And I still remember to this day going, "Oh my gosh, I will be rich," because I was making nothing at Fidelity. I mean, not very much. And so the only reason I got that job is I was so excited that one of the ladies that was there, she wanted to hire me just because of how excited I was. Do you know this? No. Do you know this? No.
well, we're going to hire you anyway because of your attitude. And honestly, I mean, I kind of got lucky in that sense because that started everything. So I want to emphasize that for those watching, you do not have to be a genius to do this. So I am living proof. All right, so first off, any questions on what a tag is? Now, what happens, you think, if I were to come down and let's put, some other text. See how I put it and wrapped it there? The reason, some tags, this H1 stands for, it's just like in Word, a heading 1. There's H2, H3, H4, just like in Word and stuff like that. This is called a block level tag. And what it does is block level means think of a box. Anything after it goes below. And that's called a block level element. It just goes right under it. Now watch what happens. What do you think if I don't close the tag though? Does it throw an error? Nope. And this is a good thing and a totally evil thing with HTML. HTML, you can absolutely commit murder in your code and it will still work. You will not be convicted of that. It just does it. You can see, and that's not a good thing though. So if I put it back, let me undo here. Now notice it. See how it wrapped it back down. All right. Now, if I change this to some other tags that, again, we'll talk more about these next week, but I just like to show some of them. Something called span. Now look what it did. Okay, so an H1 is what's called a block level, and again, it's kind of like it's almost like at the end of the tag, it's like hitting enter, and then the next thing goes on the next line. Now, watch what happens here if I do this. Nothing. Yeah, what the heck? Well, the web does not respect line breaks like that. So like, in Word, if you do that and print it, it's going to respect it. The web does not. So that gets us to other tags. If you wanted to wrap some other text down, you could either put what's called a P tag, a paragraph tag, or a line break tag. Line break looks like that. And now notice it wrapped it down. It's a BR. Now, don't worry about memorizing these because next week we'll start to dive into this. I just want to give you guys some overall stuff. All right, so let's go back to the H1 because a lot of times you'll have that at the top. And one more time, what do we call that tag? It's not an H1. It's a what type of tag? Block level. Block level. Okay, the span is called an inline. Inline. Inline means it's think of on the line, inline. Does that make sense? So you got block level, and whatever's after it goes after the block. Inline means it goes on the same line. Okay? And as you saw, what happens if I add a bunch of line breaks? Absolutely nothing. It just stays the same. Okay? HTML ignores that type of stuff, which is actually a good thing. If I wanted to add a bunch of breaks, there's many ways to do it, but I could do this. There we go. And see how it's bumping it down now? So BR just means break, break, break. And that's kind of hitting enter. Or I could do, it's called a P tag. I could even do this. Now P tags you need to end though. Like this. And see how it still bumps it down a little bit? All right. So, the big thing with any web page you guys go to is, number one, they always have the outer HTML tag. And the thing that takes a little bit of getting used to is that you start it with these less than and then greater than sign. We call them alligator brackets. That's because they, get it? Mm-hmm. Get it, Seth? Are you confused? You look, no, I'm just kidding. He's like, alligator, what do you mean? And then you always have to end by putting a /, and it does matter if it's a /. I don't know, it might. Let's try. You don't do this. Let's see what happens. Yeah, no, it butchered it. You can see it actually wrote out the tag. Not what you want. That's most of the tags you're going to do. Notice HTML has it, head has it, title has it, body has it, H1 has it, BR does not have it. Okay, BR doesn't have content inside of it. H1 doesn't have content inside of it. What do you think? Yeah, hello world. Yeah, that's the content. Whereas the span, did span have content inside of it? Yeah, that's called a content element. BR is just a line break. There's no content. Now you may see it like this in a lot of pages still, where it's called a self-closing tag like that. All right, but it's not required nowadays. There's something called HTML5. In fact, there's another thing you would normally put at the top called a Doctype. In fact, let's see if ESPN had a Doctype. They should. You're supposed to. Yep, right there. So let me actually just copy that. We'll put it back in ours. And this is something that you can control, like what version of HTML is this? And if you just see that simple one, that's called HTML5. If you ever see one that's like literally from here to Mars, that's an old one. The old ones, there was no way to memorize those suckers, and you just had to copy and paste it. This is the first one in the history that I've been able to memorize. And, honestly, a lot of this for, those that haven't done any of this, I mean, yeah, this stuff I have memorized because it's easy, but there's a lot of stuff I forget. No big deal. The best website, by the way, for you guys, and Jeff, you've already been here, it's dev.mozilla.org is my favorite. Now, there's a bunch of them. But it's developer.mozilla.org, but you can just do dev.mozilla.org. And then in here, you can then search for whatever you want, or notice up here, this is where I sent you, Jeff, was to the tutorials, because you asked. Danny and Seth did not. He also brought an apple. Yeah, it's right there. But notice, they have, this whole learn web development, tutorials, references where I spend more of my time. References where you just get into the kind of down and dirty of how this stuff works, So I'll often come in, close that, and go to the search right here, and just type what it is. So we could type like head, for instance, and I'd have to find which one. Head, yep, that one right there. And there you go. The head is part of an HTML document that contains metadata about the document, like title, description. It also can hold like CSS and JavaScript files and stuff like that. It's stuff that the user doesn't see in the head. So think of like, how a Word doc behind the scenes has all that like metadata about who's the author, when was it last saved, that type of stuff. Yeah. That's kind of like the head. So
store other
yeah,
that they don't have to see on the web page.
Well, and also search for like Google and Bing and search engines.
Oh, yeah.
You can put keywords up there.
Keywords in the
which matters for like you guys and your business and So that's kind of where I go. Now another more basic one, but it's really good actually. It's called W3 Schools. I think it's .com. Yeah. W3schools.com in the upper left there. And this one's actually maybe even better to start with because it's really like basic. The Mozilla one, that's the group, the open source group. It's an open software development group that builds Firefox. That's Mozilla.
Oh,
yeah. W3 Schools is just a website that they've been around for forever. And a lot of times when you're searching for something, these guys will come up. And they have a lot of great info over here. So like Learn HTML, which we're doing right now. And look at that. Look at the first example. So what do we got there? What's that mean? Type of HTML, HTML5 for now. You always start with the HTML tag. Notice the closing tag down below. Head for metadata. There's the title. Except for they have failed us. They did not put hello world. Yeah, it doesn't even count. But anyway, notice over here on the left, there's a few things to learn. But it's not hard. It's just one of those things that if you're gonna get serious about doing this, and the whole title we're gonna go with, my working title I said was, so you want to be a web developer, right? So my answer to that, if I say, so you want to be a web developer, Seth, would be, okay, great. Then you need to invest the time on these type of sites like Jeff did. Jeff's getting all these kudos. He's like, woo! You need to invest the time to do this on your own. That's where I'm showing you guys these editors, though. Because now you can go off, find a chunk of code on W3 Schools or the Mozilla, dev.mozilla site, copy and paste it into here and just start playing with it. See what it does. All right, so that's kind of the first thing. So you guys, before we, so like I said, this time we're just going to talk about how the web works from a high level, and then we'll, dive deeper. But how are we doing on what we got there so far? You guys have any questions? Do you guys have any questions? Oh, I can't hear you. They're going to be like, man, this dude is the cheesiest. And my wife would agree. All right. So any questions on that at all? You guys get the gist of it? So everything is tag-based. And so literally learning HTML is learning tags. All right. So let me show you a few that we'll start talking about. Normally when you write out text like this, you don't typically, you could do that, what I did, but typically what you'll do, I'm going to actually take out the BR. So you can see that's a block level element. If you don't wrap this in a tag, now watch what happens if I put text under this. See how I just throw in the same line. Because like I said, it doesn't respect carriage returns. So the two big tags you're going to see like in every website, everywhere. One is called div. I'll just put this is a div. Okay, and notice it automatically bumped it down again. But guess what type of tag this is? And I'll give you a hint. It's similar to the H1. What's going to happen, you think, if I put text under? Yep. Now, it put it right below, you'll notice. But, yeah, it did put it below. So this is also a block level. And it's kind of, you can think of it as a division. A div is like a division of the page, a part of the page. Like a really small part. Divs are used everywhere. In fact, a lot of websites. In fact, let's go to ESPN real quick. Now watch they prove me wrong. I doubt I'll be wrong on this one.
No divs here. I see div right there.
Yeah, div. They're everywhere. Div. We'll talk about section later. Div, article. These are newer ones. Section and article are a little bit newer tags. Div, header, H2. You get the idea. So I call it div soup because divs are just like ubiquitous. Every, name another website you guys would go to sometimes. Anyone? Nothing offensive, please.
Seth?
Yeah. Anyone?
You can also do like Fox Sports, whatever that one is.
Okay. Fox Sports. You guys struggled with that when I said no offensive sites. You're like, well. So let's right click. Let's look at the very top. Ring a bell. It's called the Doctype, which again is the type of the doc. There's that HTML. Now there's a bunch of other junk, but there's the head. Scroll, ignore that junk. Let's go find the body. Should be past the metas and all that. It's got to be right there. Yeah, right there. There's the body. Now there's some other tags. All right, there we go. Div. Li. That's for lists. All right, anyway, you get the idea. I don't care what site you go to, it'll be div soup everywhere. So let me show you some kind of different tags you can do here. So div is a division of the page. Think of it as kind of like a small section of the page. So normally you don't put text like where I put text under right there. That's kind of like naked text. It's not wrapped with a parent except for the... In fact, if I asked you guys, what's the parent of that text on line 11? What's the parent tag? In other words, what's it inside of?
Body.
Body, exactly. So that's kind of like a naked piece of text, and now you can't really style it. Like, what if I want to apply it bold, or I want it to be bigger, or I want to make it red? Now it's hard to style it. But if I put it in a div, I'll just put this is another div, and then what am I missing here? Yep, got to put the closing tag on these. These are content tags. All right, notice, stacks it. So now there's a little more gap here because H1s are bigger, you know? So you can see how there's a little more gap. You can actually control all that through CSS, which we'll learn later. All right, but you get the idea for a div is just like a section. Now, just to show you why this is kind of cool, we'll cover CSS later. Now, what I'm going to show you here, I don't even like to do for real, in the real world, but it's good for demos. We could say style, color, red. And boom. Actually, it looks orange on that TV, but it means our colors are off, I guess. And I could even do this. I could say font size 40 point. Boom.
There you go.
So, yeah. Is it red from your guys?
Yeah.
It looks pretty orange from here, but I think it's just because I'm at the side. But this is CSS. These are called inline styles. They're kind of evil because if you wanted to apply that style to many tags, you'd have to copy and paste, and that's not good.
That's where the CSS.
That's where this is CSS, but it's not reusable CSS.
So the reusable goes in like a file.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact,
and it
let's
just calls it.
Yep. Let's go to ESPN, view page source, and if you see anything called link, tell me.
Yep.
Now these, I'd have to click on what these are actually doing. They might be, yeah, that's a little bit different. But there'll be some, there we go. No, those are icons. There we go, like style sheet right there. See how it's a .css extension? Yeah, that's where you put your styles. But again, I don't want to jump ahead, but yeah, that's right. And this is the coolest thing about this. You know, with like desktop apps, you can't right-click view source, like Word,
Yeah.
like, or whatever you use for your editor.
Yeah.
Try right-click and view source and show me the source of Word. No, but in the web, I can't even tell you how many times. I just did it this weekend. I saw something somebody else was doing on the site, and I went, that's freaking awesome. How did they do that? So I did this. Now, I guess you call that stealing, but we call it sharing.
Yeah. Hey, collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of I didn't even use the code per se. It was just the general idea. I wanted to say like, well, how do you do that? You know? And that's the cool thing is that a lot of stuff is out there and you can very easily see. Now, some of it, normally when you get a website ready to go, you'll shrink the size of your CSS and it's really hard to read. Or like your JavaScript files, you'll compress them because maybe it's pretend one of your files is like 50K, but you don't want to ship 50K to like a mobile device.
Right.
So you'll run it through this process that'll compress it. And maybe it's like 5K because it strips out spaces, it strips out comments. And so a lot of, if you click on their stuff, if they did it right, it'll be like unreadable, even though you can get to it still. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take that back out, but that's why divs and things are kind of special. Now, what if I wanted both divs to kind of be grouped in, what would you call it in a doc? A section, you know? You have like a section of the doc, and that's what the tag's called, actually. So if we wanted both divs to kind of be organized together, one way, and we could put another div around them. But the other thing we can do is we can put section like this, and this makes a section tag. And now we have made a section that now has those two divs in it. So now if I ask you guys what's the parent of those two divs, you would say section, right? In other words, what's right above it? Yes. For anyone watching this, since this is a very on-the-fly video, the family has arrived home. One of them's here, the other, and this was the response of my wife. blah, 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 blah. We're live streaming, hun. There's like 10,000 people watching what you just said. No, I'm not. You're right. Anyway, that's probably what we'll do, by the way. I think I'm going to do live streaming eventually, and then we can get like other questions and stuff. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
And comments that are probably inappropriate. So the section, did it do anything visually?
No.
No. But what it allows us to do is kind of group those divs. And it's a newer tag, by the way. It's an HTML5, they call it tag. Really what it is it's a div in like sheep's clothing. It's pretty much what it is. It's just a more specific type of thing. Now, you'll also see sometimes around sections, in fact, ESPN, I think, had this. You'll see article like this. So, when you go to ESPN and click on like an article here, I don't know, whatever, Super Bowl rings, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I know, he had an awesome game. This is an article, right? So they came out with a new tag that you can wrap around all of this called article. And the weird thing about article, though, is sometimes you use it when you don't have an article. Like your products, Jeff. You could actually wrap that section with an article. But you don't have to. You could say, no, I'm just going to use a section. Or you could say, no, I'm just going to use a div. It doesn't matter. They all do the same things. Articles intended to be a little bit higher level, then section, then div. But a lot of people still use all divs for everything. So if you don't want to memorize that there's an article tag and a section tag, for now, just div.
But I'm sure there's benefits to using
Readability, because watch what happens here. Now, how easy it is to know which tag ends where.
Yeah.
You can figure it out if it's
You gotta
formatted.
count it. It's like open, close. Okay, that's it.
Yep. The nice thing is most editors, the editor, by the way, I highly recommend. It's a free one. Oops, we do not want to print that. You can go to code.visualstudio.com. It's actually from Microsoft, but it is amazing editor. It's free, totally free. It's open sourced as well, which means anybody can contribute. So if Seth was bored this weekend and you're like, they need this new feature, you could actually contribute it. You
can write the code for the new feature.
Which after this hour, Seth, I fully expect you should be able to do. No. But anyway, this is a great editor. It runs on Linux, it runs on Mac, and it runs on Windows. And it's free. For now, we're going to just stick to the online editors so I can save the code and stuff. But that's a great editor right there. All right. So let's go back. Anyways, that answered the question on why. You were right, Jeff. It's basically the reason they introduced the article and the section. Those are the main ones. Well, there's some others, like there's a new one called header. It means it's a header. There's one called aside. You know how you'll be reading an article and off to the side will have like a quote or something? There's a tag called aside. Sometimes, when you'll be scrolling, they'll have an image with text under it. That's called a figure, and you can have a fig caption under it. That's a new tag, figure. Well, and when I say new, I mean over the last few years. It's not new. But anyway, that's why article and section, see how much more readable that is now?
Yeah.
Now, multiply, we got a simple one. Multiply that times what you guys saw on the ESPN site.
Right.
And now it starts to get a little tricky. Anyway, the reason I thought to show you the editor is a lot of editors, when you click on the tag, I don't know if this one does it. Nah, it doesn't look like it does. Well, no, it did. It did. See how it highlights it?
That'll show you the open and close.
Yeah. And then if you don't see the close, then you go, oh shoot, I screwed up, because you won't get an error. It's just like the web page might be all weird, and then you're like, what the heck? And it turns out it's just like you forgot to close a tag. It happens all the time. But you don't throw errors with HTML, so it's impossible to screw up somebody's computer with just HTML. Now with JavaScript, you can do some more stuff, but anyway, do some damage. All right, any questions on that, guys? Does that make sense so far? Okay. All right, let me show you a few more of the kind of primitive things. So we've already seen you have the HTML, you have the head for metadata, title you normally have, although it's optional. You know, title never shows up here again; it shows up on the tab. I don't think. Oh no, it did. Look up. Oh no, that's the name of my project. Never mind. Yeah, on the left you'll see there's a hello world there. And then you have the body. The body is obviously what renders in the browser, and then it's up to you guys to write the tags. Now here's where it gets tricky though. Notice how these divs, they stacked, right? And again, why is that? They're called block level. If I would have done spans, what would they have done? Same line, because it's called inline, right? But you know, how many websites you've been to that has like a really cool menu that's horizontal? And well, if you look at it, sometimes they might actually do that with divs. And then you would go, wait a sec, Dan said that those are block level, so they should stack. Right? Well, normally they do. That's where CSS comes in. CSS can let you rearrange things however you want. One of the really popular CSS libraries out there that it's actually from originally from the developers at Twitter. That's very popular. If you go to getbootstrap.com, this is kind of like a library. In other words, it's a file that they give you that we could include, and then it would style things automatically. And then you can apply styles, and you can lay things out very easily, like horizontal or vertical or whatever. I actually really like it. Some people love this, some people hate it. I really like it because it's very good for productivity, and in the in kind of the enterprise world, productivity like really matters. So a lot of corporate developers like this. Not all, but a lot. I would say like, gosh, probably 80% of the corporations I go to, at least, are using Bootstrap. Now, we're not going to go into that right now. I wouldn't even worry about it. Just kind of make a mental note that this helps you style things and makes it look, you know, pretty and stuff like that. Okay.
So they're basically like templates that they give you?
Kinda,
or
like
the actual files to...
Well, they give you a file. It's one file.
Okay.
Well, it's actually, there's a CSS file,
Uh-huh.
and then they also have a JavaScript file,
Okay.
but we won't get into that. But the CSS file, what they do is they have some like predefined styles.
Uh-huh.
So now when it sees an H1, they've already defined a style for H1.
They're going to do everything.
So like the padding may change,
Okay.
and even the way it like spaced out in the words could
Uh-huh.
change because they have a predefined style.
Okay.
They have it's called a grid system, where imagine like an Excel spreadsheet, and you have your columns and your rows, and you know you guys would just go into Excel or Google's Sheets or whatever, and just type into the cells, right? Well, in the web world, you can see right here, it doesn't just like render cells, it just stacks. But using Bootstrap, you could actually lay things out like almost like Excel does.
Okay.
But yet on mobile device, it would look good. On iPad, it would look good. And on big old TV, it would look good.
So it renders it based on the size.
Yeah, it's called responsive design. We're kind of jumping ahead on that, but we'll get there. All right. So now that I've done that, let me save. And so now this just saved the sandbox. So now this URL, which I'll get to you guys somehow. In fact, I could probably just text you later. But now you guys could go to this and start playing with it and stuff. I mean, it's phenomenal. You can show Hillary, look what I learned tonight, and she's gonna go, "That's it? Like that was a waste of your time."
Hello, world.
You can do better than that.
You can be like, "Look, I rebuilt our whole product site. Look at it. What do you think?"
This is all we need.
Seth goes in when you start back up Sunday. He goes in and I rewrote the enterprise site. Look at this. So anyway, that's kind of the fundamentals. Now, let me show you just a few more things, and then we'll wrap up here. And then if you guys have questions, we can go into that. Because today, like I said, all I wanted to do today is break you in really gently to like the extreme basics. You know, show a few websites, how it works. And I got one more thing I want to show you though. But how would you like bold? This is a div.
Strong.
Hey, look at that man. Ooh. He must have done some of the tutorials on the Mozilla site. Yeah, they're pretty good though.
What's funny is I actually knew some of this from watching a couple of videos, but then as I was going through, I was like, "That's right."
You've seen it before, yeah. And it does help when you're like, I've actually seen that before.
Because I watched some of these videos like months back, and then the HTML videos, and then just going through, it was like. Yeah. I remember that.
So anyway, now, do I use strong a lot? No, I actually don't. This is where I'd prefer CSS, because CSS, you're going to see as we get into it later in another little workshop, is way more reusable. Like, I could make it where I say every div is bold. You wouldn't want to do that, but I could do that with one little bit of code. I could say every div is bold, or every H1 needs to be the evil Comic Sans font or something. You ever seen that one? It's like kindergarten font type looking. Don't use that, please.
So
anyway.
shouldn't render code then. No.
Yeah, Jeff's like, shoot, I better redo the website. his whole WordPress site was Comic Sans. No. Anyway, so that's kind of the fundamentals. We'll kind of stop there, and then next week what we'll do is start to dive a little bit more into the, other things we can do with HTML. Maybe we'll start to do a little CSS, because that was kind of the plan next week. Because there are way more tags than we've covered, just as a heads up. Now, I want to show you a couple of things you're going to come across. Do you guys remember that, I think it was on the ESPN site, they had a header tag? In this one, you'll notice is H1. Now watch what happens when I change this to just header. Very unimpressive. So what really is a header? What was an article? What's a section? Kind of like a div. It's just a block level element. That's all a header is. Now, why would you do that? Well, because again, what's more readable? Now, could I style the header? With CSS? Yeah. So I'm not saying H1's bad, by the way. They're used all the time. H1, H2, H3, H4, H5 even. They're used all the time. But there are these other tags like header. There's a footer tag. So maybe at the bottom down here under the article, we put a BR. What's that mean again? Yep, break, line break. And then we put a footer. In fact, I'll show you how we can do a copyright symbol. There you go. 2018, Seth. This is this little dude right here. It's called an entity. And it's just it's a built-in way you can do certain symbols, like registered trademark, stuff like that. They have these built-in symbols. Don't worry about that, but that's what you can do. So notice, what did the footer tag do, though?
The bottom.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Now let's prove that that's not actually what it does. Footer. And you go, what the heck, man? I thought it was a footer. What is a footer, really? It's another block level element. It's totally up to you where you put it. It is. It's just like another div almost. That's actually, technically, someone watching will go, no, it's not a div. It's another block level element.
Yeah. They all do the same thing basically, but it's just kind of how you use them that organize.
What they did is we used to just have divs and spans. And then we get into that div soup I was telling you, where it's just hard to figure out. So then when HTML5 came out, they introduced article, section, header, footer, and a bunch of aside, caption, fig caption. There's even more. They call these semantic tags because they provide extra meaning to the document. That's why they call them semantic tag. They basically are adding meaning. Whereas if you just see div, 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 and I say, hey, Seth, what's that div do? You go, a division? Whereas now, if I say, hey, what's the copyright tag do? You say, oh, it's a footer. Make sense? It's just a lot more readable, and it's a heck of a lot easier to work with. And the good news is all the major browsers support these now. So now if you had like IE6, not so much. But if you're basing your site on IE6, it is time to get a new job. All right. So anyway, there's header, there's footer. Up here we could put like in the header as an example, the toolbar or menu. I'll just put toolbar/menu. That might actually go up in the header. That looks horrible, but again, that's why you use CSS or Bootstrap or something like that. Okay. Last thing I want to show you, and we'll wrap up, is I've been right-clicking View Page Source, right? That is the extremely primitive way to see this. Let me show you what the pros do. So when you go to build a website, you need to be able to, especially when you start writing JavaScript and CSS, you need to start kind of like debugging, fixing issues. So in Chrome, and Firefox has this, and IE has this, and Edge has this. If you right-click, you're going to see in Chrome, you'll see Inspect. Now watch what happens here. All right, so I changed my resolution so you guys could read this, but up top here, see how it says Elements, and this is kind of like the source. This is different than right-clicking View Source. This is the live source because CSS would change this, JavaScript could change this. This is what you actually see now. Now check out what's so cool here. If I go into sources, I can actually see all the, wow, they're pulling from tons of stuff. But ESPN's Disney, so they got some ID frame there. But see all these domains, these website domains? That's where they're pulling CSS and JavaScript, and the reason is a lot of these servers will be around the world. So if you're in Australia, you would get like an Australian version of the server, and it's faster instead of having to come all the way back to the US network. But what I want to show you in here, if we go back to Elements, is watch when I click on this arrow. And if you said, well, how are they doing that picture of James Harden? Well, you click on that arrow, mouse over, and see how it highlighted it? Now if I click, look what it did over here. Image tag, IMG. That's how they're doing that. Now we'll cover that one later. Click it again. Let's go to, what do you guys think this is? Oh, look at that. We know that one. It's an H1. Now you'll notice this class with a bunch of stuff. That's CSS. And that's what's giving it the size and the color and stuff like that. Now, what about the score here? Well, again, same thing. You just click, mouse over. Hey, we know that tag. It's an inline span, right? So notice these all line up. So they probably have like span, span, span or something to do the score there, which actually they do not. They have a div around it, and there we go. There's div soup right there. See all the divs? Yeah. So check this out. So see how the span, which is when I click it, see how as I mouse over here, watch to the left. So remember I was telling you I saw something cool and I want to see how they did it? Yeah. That's how easy it is. Right click, inspect. That gets you, this is called the Chrome Developer Tools. It is the coolest web developer thing. Like if you're going to be a good web developer, you absolutely know how to use a lot of, not all, but a lot of this. So watch this though. Let's see, that span has a class of what? Score? Okay, let's see if they're actually using that. Okay, I don't think they're actually using it though. Oh no, right there, right there. Game strip is probably a parent up here somewhere, and then score. So see this color? This is called hexadecimal. Trust me, you don't memorize that for sure. You can actually, in Chrome, watch this. Pulls up a color picker. And then I'm going to mouse around and look at the, well, actually, I might not be changing that one much. No, it is. See how they're red now? Or orange. Okay. Or if you wanted, if you're Purple lover. There you go. And of course, now everyone on ESPN sees this, right? No. You're like, dude, I'm not that stupid. So anyway, now I really messed it up, so you can't read it. But you get the idea. So you can actually go in, and we'll start to play with this next few weeks here. And you can start totally playing around, like font size. Well, I can even click on it and see how I'm just moving my mouse wheel. And so you can start to experiment with, well, what if the styles, what would it look like this, without even touching your code, which is super cool. So anyway, you can see all the padding and borders around it. And it's amazing. I use this every day, this tool right here. If you go on my desktop right now in my office, you will see a web page that has this open literally right now because I use it for debugging. Now, you can also debug JavaScript. If I go to sources in here, you can find the JavaScript files and set what's called breakpoints, and we'll get into that later. But all right, now one last thing. Notice how it's see how it's nicely resizing? So check this last thing out. See next to up here, see this guy right here? It says toggle device. Watch this. I can actually say, what's it look like on a Galaxy S5? Boom. And you can see how it's called how responsive your app is. I could go to an iPad. There's iPad. I could go into landscape by clicking this little rotate. There's landscape mode, and that's what it would look like on your iPad. Isn't that cool? And then when you want to go back, you just click off the device thing here, and now you're back into regular. Pretty cool, huh? These are the things. You'd be surprised how many people do web development that, that like we train, that you show them the tricks in here, like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing?
Well, it's funny that that Divi thing, they incorporated a lot of that, like with the phone and the tablet view. So like as you're kind of building it out, you switch over to the
and it
different
works.
views to make sure
Cool.
that everything that you're doing is working. So, but yeah,
They got the responsive. That just means their CSS is already designed to be adjusting, responsive, which is cool. So, all right, we'll call it a day, guys. So what we'll do next week, and anybody that wants to tune in, assuming we publish this, I don't know now, is we'll start to we'll kind of revisit HTML again. Here's your assignment for this week. Go pick I already gave Danny this. Go pick, and you have not done it. Go pick a website that you go to a lot, and find. Let's just say 4 tags that we haven't covered. Okay, that you don't recognize. Run off to either W3 Schools or to the Mozilla, and then just write up a little description about what is that tag, like what does it do, and then next week remind me I said this because I'll probably forget. We'll kind of go around the room real quick and say, okay, what tags did you find? And you'll probably pick some that somebody else did, so we can just skip it once somebody does it. But that's pretty much how you have to start learning this. Is you just got to dive in and start looking at some of the tags. Like the image tag we saw, IMG. There's a table tag. If you want to write out columns and rows, there's a table tag for like tabular data, for like reports and things. So that's kind of the assignment for next week. And then I will figure out a way I'll text you or something this link. And then if you really, here's your extra credit, Jeff. If you really want to go all out, incorporate the tag into this, your version of this. So what you guys will do is you'll go to this and then see that fork button right up top. You'll have to create an account, which is free. Hit fork, and then that's going to make your own little kind of branch, your copy. And then if the extra credit is, all right, add in that tag. And if it's like an image, you could even add in the image if you want. You'd have to know what's called the URL, the location of the image. But I'll let you guys look that up. All right, we good?
Yes.
Learn anything? Not really? Thanks. All right, well, that is our first ever. So you want to be a web developer workshop. So we will wrap up.